Hey there, and welcome back to our lore playthrough of Elden Ring. We have one last part of this section of Altus Plateau that we're going to want to kind of check out before we really move on to something else, right? I'd like to get this kind of thoroughly done before we completely move on. That way I don't forget to come back and check things out. And it is the abandoned coffin, because there was multiple ways we could have gotten up into the Altus Plateau, right? All these different avenues. And even though, yeah, we poked up here pretty quick, it was one of the first ways we did it. It's super easy to just kind of forget this entire area and just keep pushing on hard there. I mean, that's kind of the nature of open worlds, right? But I think it's going to be pretty important for us to go through. But what is the name of it, right? Abandoned coffin. We look around and we see all these funeral cart things. Now, all these things are generally pulled by trolls, along with heavy convoys of soldiers, and they typically have some kind of item with them. A lot of times, is it all that every time? I think every time has been weapons, actually, right? Because the first one we find is way down in here by the Waypoint Ruins, and it has a great axe in it, right? Then we can end up finding another one right out here. Has a tree sentinel tree spear, great spear thing, right? Pretty cool. Then you can find one way up here, and what's in this one? You find a carrion. I think it's actually right along in here. Maybe it is right here. Carrion straight sword. Now, one of the knights, Carrion Knight straight sword. There's also an abandoned one right up in here, right by the Kalim ruins there. This whole stretch right here. Great sword in there. They all have weapons. Even the one that we find up here, right in this area, trolls thing. There was a second one actually, which had a great shield talisman maybe. So maybe that one doesn't quite follow the rule, but it seems for the most part, even the one up here, great stars, they're all weapons, right? So maybe they're carts for oh, my game stopped. Stand by. Okay, we're back. Yeah, so maybe these carts were somehow for warriors, but there's just a bunch of them here, and it literally looks like they've just been dumped. And it's not the only thing that's here. It's all these golem bodies too, but they look I mean, even the carts have been here for a while, because look how they're half submerged in the earth, just like these golems too. And there's also something else. These omens, right? You know, we see some right there, him patrolling. And they're a little different than a lot of the others we've seen, where they're only wearing kind of that raggy loincloth with some of the shoulder pauldron thing and stuff. These have some other robes across their back and stuff, but you can still see the telltale sores, kind of lesion looking spots on them. Twisted weapons. They also have the manacle chain looking things, they're prisoners, right? Coming in for that big hug, no big deal. They are very sturdy, right? And I mean, what's the look how he had that sanguine noble, and how he had some kind of horn things going on, because that's what Margit the Fell had going on. He had some horn sprouting with him. And so in my head I was all right, it's kind of like the omens, kind of that lion claw or lion beast thing with horns coming out. But obviously that sanguine noble is very different. He's nowhere near the same build as this thing, and he's very finesse based, where this is just brute strength, right? Yeah, so it's why are they here, right? And they're definitely ostracized from the rest of the groups, because we see that with the other camps of Lanedale soldiers, where they have their own little encampment and is separate from the rest of the soldiers, right? And so maybe they are fulfilling a similar role as the vulgar militia, where they're basically put in these places that are just you know, shitholes, right? I don't know how else to describe it. Just places nobody else wants to go, and it's just a dirty job. Somebody needs to do it somewhere, right? There is, yeah, that's what I'm looking for here. Pick it up. Ruler's mask and ruler's robe, right? And I mean, it's another mask item, so it's a lot like the, we see the Mirai's mask, right? So it's a mask in the image of a wizened sage. Customary dress among lords in a smaller nation increases faith. Such a mask illustrates the qualities of an ideal lord, chiefly wise and possessing a certain defanged geniality. One at the center of society often finds these qualities most expedient. Now, this is making me think some things, and I'm going to try and be better with some of the stuff. When I come back and I'm editing, I have more thoughts about it, and it's hard for me to figure out how to integrate it. And so I need to make sure I'm spending time now to outside and like outside just off the cuff talking about it, like take a second to really think and connect it with some of these other things that I'm going to figure out later, right? So there's a couple of things to note. Like one, there is the immediate similarity with like, okay, it's a mask thing, but it doesn't necessarily specifically connect anything to them, right? Other than like noble, wizened sage, lords of a smaller nation, right? So maybe like there is some connection there. Like maybe the House of Mirais came from a like foreign nation of sorts, and so that's why this is from customary dress of lords in a smaller nation, right? And we know there are some other nations because of like the opening like or beginning starter classes and stuff, the various items we found before, right? And even this one kind of has like, it looks like a cloth type of thing that comes up to wrap around the head as well, similar to this one as well. But I like the like across the top and the crown of sorts, right? It's got jewels, which kind of made me think of the merchants. They have a bunch of jewels things set in some of their stuff too, but also a lot of various things across the game have kind of jewels like this set into them. But I like the idea, right? Such a mask illustrates the qualities of an ideal lord, chiefly wise and possessing a certain defanged geniality, right? But then, right, we go into these talismans and there's a Godfrey icon. Godfrey, like I would say warlord, right? He was like led the golden host across the lands, defeating like all kinds of enemies, and like the hero at the down in the Weeping Peninsula in Castle Morn, like slayed by or defeated by Godfrey himself, right? And he was in here it says Godfrey was a ferocious warrior, but when he vowed to become a lord, he took the beast regent Serosh upon his back to suppress his ceaseless lust for battle that raged within, right? So he became the Elden Lord. So when he did that, he started to try and fit into this like ideal image of a lord, chiefly wise and just kind of like gentle, not really like vicious, right? And so I kind of like that idea, like connection there. Now, obviously, we could keep kind of going up this road right here. But what we're going to do, we're going to check out some of these ruins right here. And then there's this whole lake section to check out as well. Look at all the Miranda flowers there, right? Another thought I had about the Miranda flowers, again, kind of a thought I had in post-editing or whatever, right? Where I was like, well, maybe, the perfumers, especially the depraved ones, had stuff like implying that they were using their own concoctions to kind of like alter themselves or something. Well, the Miranda flowers and stuff, Sacred Order, feast on human flesh. So I wonder if like, did these like Miranda flowers kind of grow off of somebody important, and that's why they're called Miranda, and that's like how you got that first one, the Miranda the blighted sprout, right? Because they're also like, obviously they're weird, right? One, they take on aspects of different zones. Like these, you got your generic, just like poison and doing weird star thing, which we'll touch on. And then you've got the magic ones, which do these like magic kind of shooting star following things. There's madness ones, there's rot ones, like there's all kinds of different varieties. But most of them, the magic ones do a blue spell thing, but most of them do that weird shooting star thing where it floats up into the sky and then it shoots down, right? And so it's an interesting kind of like falling star shower kind of thing. Interesting thing. So I'm wondering, like, if they supposedly feed off the flesh and corpses of other like bodies, was there the original come from some like important one in particular, and that's what made it the way it is, and then you started getting all these, the rest of them, right, as it started like spreading. And look what we have here, more little Miranda flowers, along with a whole bunch of Michaela's lilies and perfumers. And look, he's probably looking after them, just like the ashes say to do here with the Miranda sprouts. Do take care of the little darlings, right? They feed upon human flesh. Look right there. There is a statue to Rosas here to go. And you can see it right there, a catacomb section, right? So we'll have to go get that. But we saw another, there's a perfumer walking there. So there's a lot of perfumers around here, right? This is their like home turf, considering like, I mean, right here, there's a lot of Miranda flowers. So it makes sense that I guess it would be here because they use those for their different mixtures. But then you get the perfumer's grotto. So like the Altus Plateau in general is their home. Like they are followers of the like Lanedale forces, and it's the perfumer's ruins. So there's one there, a bunch of other like, Miranda flowers again. And there's an omen killer. Now, like I said before, right, you can see how there's like that thick like apron like the perfumers use. Now there's more stuff that we're gonna get like guaranteed to tell us later, right? And it's interesting because you get that stuff later that like confirms certain things or explains things, but all the clues to tell you the answers are kind of like laid out in front of you before you even get like the confirmation things, right? There they are, omen killer stuff, right? And so that's probably gonna tell us about them and like what their deal is. We know they kill omens because it's in their name. They use these big cleaver things with horns from the omens, so we know the omens are supposed to have horns. That's what those big red spots are. It's where the horns have been cut off of them. Now, are they cut off by the omen killers? Because why would the omen killers cut them off and then leave them alive unless they somehow escaped? So, robe worn by the omen killers, butchers of twisted conscience. Its thick apron is worn in remembrance of Rollo, the progenitor of the omen killers and a perfumer of antiquity. So, the current omen killers are maybe not perfumers, but Rollo, the progenitor, the first of them, as is what we can assume there, was a perfumer of antiquity. So he was a perfumer, hence why they wear an apron-like thing, right? Very cool looking. I mean, it's even got some like, I mean, the stuff on it is very reminiscent of some kind of like Erd tree following faithful type of thing, right? I do dig it. I dig it a lot. The one thing we did not get was their mask, however. Perfumer's Cookbook 1. All right, is this going to be the one that finally isn't from a depraved perfumer? Record of crafting techniques left by military perfumer. Contains martial techniques beyond the repertoire of an ordinary physician. So it gets spark aromatic and uplifting aromatic. So the spark one is art of the perfumers who fought in the shattering. Uses FP to broadly scatter sparks in a wide arc straight ahead. We see that with them doing. They see the kind of sparkling shimmer and then it explodes, it combusts. Though fire was prohibited to those who served the Erd tree, this rule was forgotten as the war drew ever on. So probably in the beginning they were like, nope, still can't use it, not gonna do it. And then it just kept going and going and going. And so they eventually like chose to do it. And it's interesting, you make it out of Altus bloom and Miranda powder. Now there's an uplifting one, which we get from Altus bloom, budding cave moss, silver tear husks found in and around the Eternal City, and arteria leaves. So the art of perfumers who fought in the shattering raises the attack power of the user and nearby allies while also reducing the damage from one incoming attack. This aromatic has an extremely potent morale-raising effect that makes those accustomed to it fearless in the face of death. It was this influence that made the perfumers exceptional commanders. It's an interesting contrast to this one, the Blood Boil one, right? Used by a forbidden art, used by the depraved perfumers. Even upon the battlefield, do you fear being wounded? Take a good look, your limbs are frozen stiff. So you use it to do a state of fervor, raising your attack power and stamina, but also increasing the damage that you take. It's kind of cool. I'm going to upgrade that one. I'm going to make some more of that one because if I'm blocking, I'm not necessarily taking damage, right? In theory. Now, the Altus bloom, when you look at it, it's a gold-tinged flower from a succulent plant that blooms in the Altus Plateau. Succulent plants typically don't need a lot of water, right? Said to be a funeral flower in an era long past before the Erd tree grew. So this would have been something, I guess, from a long time ago, right? That you would do in funeral things. So maybe in some of those old things, maybe that's the type of plant you see, right? This one does lightning. Poison bloom is because of viscous poison fluid. Where's the Miranda powder? Throughout history, perfumers have prized this extremely fragrant form of Miranda pollen, not yet scattered into the air. And I mean, you can see it's still attached to the flower, right? Pollen from a man-eating Miranda flower. The golden sunflower is a sunflower that grows facing the Erd tree. At the foot of the Erd tree, they retain their color along with powerful holy essence. Where this one is wilted and faded, it still retains a little bit of it. And we find ourselves a perfumer's talisman, which was hidden down under some boards in here. It's a talisman depicting a set of perfume bottles, obviously. Raises potency perfume items. There are gardens known only to the perfumers. Whether hidden on the fringes of the highlands or obscured by the shadows inside caves, the flowers blossom in secret, waiting to impart their scent. And I mean, we've seen the perfumer's grotto, right? So they have these I guess, hidden gardens to get all their flowers blooming and scents and materials for their various, mixtures. Well, let's go down here because there is a nice little set of catacombs here for us to check out. And it's sealed. Needs 2 stone sword keys. The unsightly catacombs. All right. So what are we going to find in here? Typically skeletons, golems, or misbegotten. Is that what's unsightly about it? Is it's the misbegotten? Because that's what a lot of folks don't really like. Now, why would there be something like this near the perfumers? Well, we have that traveling hat that talked about how this traveling perfumer of no renown was attempting to follow in the footsteps of a different perfumer and find other scents and materials to aid and heal those who are looked down upon, the omens, the misbegotten, and whoever else, right? And so that's why you would find this right here. Oh, there's an omen right there. He thinks he's so sneaky. We're gonna have to go and get the lever though. It's like a just pit of bodies, they've been dumped in here, right? But they're not all dead. You can hear them breathing, and you can also see them around here. Winged misbegotten ashes. That's a ghost glovewort. I think most of the others have been just regular kind of glovewort. I'll take a look at it real quick, the winged one. So ashen remains, once used to summon the spirit of a winged misbegotten. A spirit with the aspect of wings, which takes flight to loose arrows from its bow. The misbegotten are held to be a punishment for making contact with the crucible, and from birth they are treated as slaves or worse. So one of the first things we can take from it, right, was the aspect of wings. Well, that's just like one of the incantation spells, right? Aspect of the crucible, tail, aspect of the crucible, horns, right? So they specifically have wings, and I mean it says it is, right, because they are held to be a punishment for making contact with the crucible. And so immediately they're just immediately looked down upon, even though I can't imagine that these have really had any specific contact with the crucible, because the crucible was a primordial essence that made the Erd tree, right? And the Erd tree has been around for a very, very long time. So unless all these misbegotten are from way, way long ago, apologies. So unless they're from some bygone age, they're really just somehow descended from a line of people who had some kind of contact with it. Now, that crucible vestige thing, I didn't mean to use my relic, that crucible not talisman, it said, right? It's a vestige of the crucible of primordial life, right? It used to be divine, but now it's not looked well upon. Perfumer Trisha, misbegotten warrior. Let's summon up our bird. So misbegotten warrior, right? So we'd seen some of them before. We had the Leonin warrior, which was in what's it called? We found him in Castle Morn. Boom, boom. Ooh, ouchies. Oh, he's defending Trisha. Now, she has a name, right? And look how she's doing that supporting aromatic. She might be that perfumer of renown that the traveling perfumer is kind of emulating in some way, right? And why would we kind of think that? One, she has a name, but two, what is she around? Misbegotten. What was one of the things that guy is trying to help treat? Misbegotten and others who are not looked well upon. Eat some shield crash. I missed. So maybe we'll see what we get from her. I want the critical hit. Okay, we're not. It's fine. Misbegotten warrior. They all seem to have a slightly different name each time. These Leonin misbegotten, right? Wonder what aspect they emulate, right? I guess so. The ones probably have aspect of the crucible tail. So what is their aspect, right? Just beast of some sort. But Trisha, let's see what it says. I think she's kind of a cool one too. I might use her a little bit. Summon the spirit of Trisha, the perfumer. Trisha was once known as a healer who dedicated her efforts to treating misbegotten omen and all those seen as impure. When her efforts failed, she was their companion as they died, watching over them to ensure that they could pass peacefully, free of pain. A tale akin to the origins of deathbed companions. That's literally what I was thinking too, right? Because she's talking about how she was their companion while they died, right? Which is like what Fia did. Only Fia's is a little different. She, from what it seemed like, she didn't like hang out with them when they were dying. Like, it talked about how she would like gain the vigor of champions and then go lay with one who was like dead or dying and reinvigorate them, right? And then because she became tarnished, that's why she was like kind of like chased out, is the impression I got, is because she was no longer like the deathbed companion. She was now a tarnished, so she didn't perform her role that she was meant to do, right? And I guess that's why it says akin to the origins of deathbed companions. It's interesting too that like we literally just fought her and then we got her ashes. So it's kind of crazy that like, you know, just like that, it's now she's just spirit summons for us, right? Have I mentioned how in the center of the Table of Lost Grace there's a singular giant thing of grace? Huh. It's weird because like I think I've just seen it so much, I just kind of glaze over it now, which is part of why I'm trying to do this playthrough, is to like really try and like take my time to like relook at things. But I'm still missing things that I've seen before and I just, you know, take for granted now. Whose grace is that? Who's lost grace? Is it Godfrey's, right? Because his grace was stolen. Where did it go? And something I would like to say about the perfumers, right? They're really interesting, right? Because they're highly looked upon, right? And they're physicians, apothecaries, right? And given that they have like what looks to be Erd steel daggers, you know, they would be like adherents to the Erd tree, followers of the Erd tree. But the thing is, most of the people who are like these adherents to the Erd tree and stuff, most of them, right, like the omens, the misbegotten, all of them are looked down upon, right? That's not what they're about, though. Like, they're trying to treat them, they're trying to help them, right? So it's like they're trying to, you know, be gentle and kind and good and healers. Now, this kind of lines up with a few characters' ideals, right? And one in particular who's kind of standing out right now is the person who gives us the Erd Steel Dagger, and that's Kenneth Haight. Because when you talk to him about the demi-humans, because they had like assaulted the fort because they'd lost their queen, he's like, oh yeah, I'll, you know, reopen relations with them. He's like, are you surprised? Like, under the Erd tree, like, everybody can be, you know, like, united and stuff like that. And then it also kind of falls in with what the Muriel, the Pope Turtle, says. And this is Sage's Cave. We'll talk about that in a second. But the Muriel, the turtle, right? He talks about how, you know, heresy is not native to the world. All things can be conjoined, right? So he's basically like, yeah, all of it can kind of come together. There's no reason why not. And it's also what Rogier says. Rogier talks about how, isn't it fascinating how under the Golden Order, they could even integrate things like with the Carrion family and stuff, things that would have been considered like, you know, heresy or non-native, whatever, right? But under the Golden Order, it could all fit together. But now it doesn't do that anymore. Now the Golden Order is like twisted. It doesn't fit that ideal even anymore, even though there are some individual examples that are like pointing to the opposite of that. It's like the Golden Order is not what it should be. Sage's Cave. What's interesting about a sage, right? We have their set, a tower of wise sages who are deemed heretical. Evidence that the wearer was driven from town, right? So they were wise, but they were deemed heretical and were driven from town. Now, obviously, the cave doesn't have a hood like this, and especially when you look at this, a ruler's mask, the image of a wizened sage, right? And this one's all positive, right? Qualities of an ideal, right? Ideal lord. But I just get the vibe from this that, yeah, it's not gonna be good. They're probably gonna be heretical, right? So then the question is, what are they, like, adhering to? There's a skeleton. Look, he's all meaty. So it probably has something to do with death, I imagine, right? Black hood. Okay. What's in this one? Candle tree wooden shield. Oh, we've seen some candle trees before. nascent butterfly. Okay, we've just been fighting a bunch of skeletons so far. It hasn't really been interesting. The blackhead is cool. I like the fashion of it, right? A hood of lusterless black fabric that conceals its wearer's identity. In this world, there is very little that must necessarily be known. I think that's actually kind of a fun jibe for like the game itself. Like, really, there's not a lot you actually have to know to do the game, right? I do like the fashion of it though. It looks cool. I'll take it with this. Why not? I do like how the exile hood looks too, though. And here is the golden great arrows. Okay, we'll have to check that out. There's a bow we got way early on that maybe has something to do with it. Raptor talons and dragon wound grease. Okay, so these are carved great arrows made together with the Erdtree great bow. Deals holy damage, imbued with an oath-sworn incantation, which boosts the attack and defense of the archer and their nearby allies. And you can see the emblem for the incantation behind it, you know, that Erdtree seal. And look how it's got that kind of winding, kind of twisty curve to it, right? Another recurring kind of image. Raptor talons, though, claw comprised of two sharp, thin blades wielded by the assassins of Ravenmount. This weapon allows them to imitate the attacks of death birds. Besides excelling at airborne attacks, its charge attack mimics the vicious swoops of a bird of prey. Yeah, so they're the assassins of Ravenmount. We fought one before. There was Yura, right? And so he was an assassin of Ravenmount. But they were interested in emulating the Deathbirds. And Deathbirds are pretty old school, right? Old lore. But I would say probably before the Erdtree, right? Some more chests. Okay, what have we got? Raptor's black feathers and skeletal mask. So it's a skeletal mask that tightly grips the face worn by the assassins of Ravenmount. The ritual implement relentlessly digs into the wearer's face, preserving one's human instincts while dressed in imitation of the Deathbird. So again, you know, they're all just emulating this Deathbird stuff, right? And another ritual implement for transforming into a Deathbird, if only by imitation, strengthens jump attacks. We are birds of prey, bringers of death. Now the Deathbirds, right? Because we've gotten these like ritual implements, these blue feathered branch swords, red feathered ones, right? Which we got from Deathbirds. And so they talk about this like almost, I would say, ritual sacrifice, right? Except it's not just by like, here's an offering and then we just sacrifice this bounded person, right? It sings when close to death, and glorious end awaits those who cling to life. Same thing here, right? The heart sings when it draws close to death, and thus does one cling so tenaciously to life to render up a death worth offering. So it's like, it's like they weren't looking for just like willing sacrifices or even prisoner sacrifices. They were trying to get like people who did not want to and were going to fight to avoid it, right? So maybe where like the assassins kind of come into play. But then I didn't talk on this, but we got that Candletree wooden shield, thought to represent a surreptitious prophecy of cardinal sin. The lit Candletree design was forbidden. I don't think it has anything to do with like Deathbirds, but I think given how this cage is like the sage's cave and how the sage hood talks about how they're like kind of heretical of some sort, maybe there's a lot of heretical things in here, especially when this is a surreptitious prophecy of cardinal sin being very, very bad, like primary, like the sin to make. And what is it? It's a lit candle tree, so like a burning tree. I mean, you can see the tree design and almost like roots kind of going down. Now the coloration and stuff makes me think of those like candle tree things we see out in the world that are kind of like guide stones for undead. Let's go in here. Who are we gonna fight? Necromancer Garrus. Look at his robes. They're sage robes. Boom. He's getting absolutely wrecked here, though. He's got a flail, which actually I've been kind of wanting to do a flail thing. Ah, look at that. It's a snake, but it's a skeletal bone snake. And look at these skull spells he's doing. Now, the interesting thing about him doing this, right, is the spells. Wow, they track for a long time. I guess I didn't remember that. The spells we found, these like death hexes, were rediscovered by the Necromancer Garrus. And here he is. Come on, get that shield. Oh, it takes so long to wind up. Even the snake thing is doing the spells. I don't like that. All right, I was messing him up, and then I started letting myself get distracted, talking, and letting him do crap. Yeah, see ya. What are you guys gonna do? So family heads. So this is the necromancer who's been rediscovering these death hexes, and he is the, the sage, the heretical sage that the cave is named after. 3 bludgeoning copper heads attached to a handle by chains. Signature weapon of necromancer Garrus, the heretical sage. The heads were made to resemble those of his wife and 2 children. Gently rattle the copper heads to summon vengeful spirits that chase down foes. The anguish of a spouse and children invites accursed wrath. So maybe something awful happened to his family, and that's why he started delving into these heresies, right? These forgotten hexes and stuff, and to necromancy. Let's take a look at it a little bit here, right? Look how it's got a fine design to it, right? So it's attached by a chain, which makes me think it was not originally a flail. It almost looks scepter-y to me. And even on it, look, there's I would like the bloodstain thing to go away too, though. On it is there's beasts, right? Maybe it's a scepter for somehow golden lineage Erd tree stuff, right? But then you can see them there. Look at the copper heads on there. Now, significance of copper is kind of with the regalia of Eocade, conduit for its wielder to move it by their will alone, right? So does that somehow tying into its ability to summon the dead? I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? If we go back, this was not the only path. So there is another direction to go over here. And it's another fight. This is similar to a different catacomb that we went through that had a Black Knife Assassin and then something else. And D was able to be summoned to help us out here. We are going to need to drink our blue because I want to summon Trisha. And unfortunately, she takes every last bit of FP I have. And look, it's silent. Black Knife Assassin. We don't see him anywhere though, right? So we're watching. Oh, there's some splashes of water. And she got us. Just like on the Night of Black Knives. And then she fades out. Oh my god, she's on us again. Are you serious? I didn't even get a chance to move, dude. Okay, there she goes. Somewhere. Oh, there's... Oh. I can't hit her. The shield section stuff from Trisha is nice. Keep an eye out for the water. Ah, oh my god. No. Oh, she hit it. Oh, look at that black flame stuff. Oh, god damn it. Oh, no. Oh, this is going to be awful for us. Keep hitting her, Trisha. I can't lock on. I don't have any sweeping attacks. We got to stay onto her. There we go. Now we're on it. She keeps fading out. Okay. Little tiny clip. Oh. Back away. Let's hide behind Trisha again. God, I wish I had sweeping attacks. I'm going to have to switch weapons. See, this is exactly why the tree sentinels, how that note said, there was a torch talking about using the sentry's light to reveal assassins or something along those lines. There's a whole note from the merchants we got. And what do they have? The tree sentinels have up at that main gate? They have torches. Oh, gosh, dang it. I have 1 flask left, I think. Almost got her. There we go. Did it. Good job, Trisha. Hell yeah. Maybe the bird would have been more aggressive. It would have been fine. Concealing veil. Okay. There's another item that has stuff to do with stealth too. We got it from that Inquisitor, and it was black smoke vial. So here is this. A talisman put together from dark cloths with a lustrous sheen. Completely conceals the wearer's presence while crouching at a distance from foes. Part of one of the concealing veils used by the assassins on the Night of Black Knives. So they use some kind of concealing veils in order to assassinate Godwyn the Golden. Now look at how these tied up albinarchs. You can see their faded out legs. There's even other piles of bodies of these commoners of sorts. These are probably essentially just whatever stocked bodies they had, whether it's supposed to be significant or not, who knows. I do find this interesting that they chose to have Albinauric strung up. Now, was a Black Knife assassin like kind of working in league with Garrus, the necromancer, or is that just kind of like a happenstance type of thing, right? I have nothing that points one way or the other, right? I like that they're in the same cave is maybe pointing to them working together, but past that, I don't know, man. All right, one last main thing for us to do, and that's to go up the main road. And let's check it out. I don't care to actually aggro these guys, but I might do it on accident anyways, I guess. There's a summon sign. And look at that, a dragon. Ancient Dragon Lansu. Lansa? I don't know how you say your name. I feel like it's a silent, kind of like EAX. Look at the red lightning. Big, like, glaive whipping thing. She has, like, actual hands. Like, yeah, definitely ancient dragon, right? Scales of stone, where the other dragons, you know, originated from. And see, oh, and she still has fire. Like, the other ones have just done fire. They haven't done any kind of lightning. The only other, like, differences have been with, like, specific, like, variations, whether it's the, oh, and then she fades out. 4 wings, just like the body in the cathedral. But, you know, she's doing that red lightning stuff, which we've not seen any of the other dragons do, right? And it's a little different from those other dragons where, like, say you have Smaragd, the glintstone dragon, and he does some kind of spells, but he doesn't, like, pick up his hand and wield a spell or cast it like that. Like, it's like he's shooting it out of his mouth, like a different variation of a breath attack. This one, like, conjured lightning, caught it in their hand, like, reared up, and then swooped it down, right? And I would like to get another look at it, too, to get some more, you know, just, like, better looks at the whole creature, just, you know, to see things and know them better. And that would have been your full introduction into the Altus Plateau. A couple of these other sections was like the perfumers and things, a Black Knife assassin, and then a dragon kind of like guarding the way up, right? Because that's what she was doing. She was guarding it. Didn't show up until we were like trying to come by. She swooped up from somewhere over here. But then when we injured her enough, dipped out. But that's it for this one. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. The next one, we've got a couple choices. I think it's tough, right? It's tough because there's so much to do. We could do a couple things right here, which would maybe be pretty smart because we can see that there's a path to go on up there. So maybe we'll do that. And then we have a lot of people we need to check in with. We got to check in with folks. We got to go and do some other things in Caleb. We got to push a little bit of that Ronnie quest line as well. But until then, take care.